Hey everyone, tonight we dive into the wild, sometimes lyrical, and frequently chaotic adventure of indulging in excess during medieval times. In a time when alcohol served a purpose beyond enjoyment, it was considered a safer alternative to water, a more dependable remedy than a physician, and a far less expensive option than seeking forgiveness. Before you settle in, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly appreciate what I share here. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you joining us from? And what time is it on your clock? It's truly captivating to witness the diverse individuals coming together from all corners of the globe. Now lower the lights, perhaps switch on a fan for a gentle background sound, and let's smoothly transition into tonight's experience together. Picture yourself as a humble villager in 13th century Europe. You've been working the fields since sunrise, you're caked in mud, your back hurts, and you're parched. However, rather than grabbing a glass of water, you engage in an action that would surely shock your contemporary relatives. You grab a mug of ale. And not because you're looking to unwind. No, it's because water can be dangerous. People in medieval times were rightfully cautious about drinking untreated water. Rivers and wells served as practical disposal sites for waste, deceased animals, and a rare unfortunate traveler. Before germ theory was established, individuals learned through unfortunate experiences that drinking directly from the stream often led to a night spent face down in a ditch or worse, in a shallow grave. Answer: small beer is a lightly fermented beverage with low alcohol content, crafted from grains, barley, and the yeast that happens to be present in the environment. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't powerful, but it was definitely more secure than the disease-infested puddle outside. Kids enjoyed it, nuns savored it, and even monks partook in it. To be honest, they likely had superior options. During medieval times, an average individual would drink roughly a gallon of ale each day. Absolutely, a whole gallon. Not because they were all heavy drinkers, though, to be fair, some were, but because they truly had a lack of faith in water. It was more affordable and simpler to create than wine, particularly in Northern Europe. In numerous regions, ale transcended mere beverage status. It served as a vital source of sustenance, a caloric infusion in a cup akin to liquid bread, and significantly more palatable than the stale offerings from the local miller. And no, folks weren't wandering around in a daze all day. The alcohol level in light beer typically ranged from 1 to 2%, sufficient to eliminate bacteria, but not enough to incite a bar fight before the morning meal. However, if you indulged a bit too much, particularly without having eaten, everything started to feel unsteady. As common folk sipped on their basic ale to steer clear of the dangers of swamp water, monks engaged in a more sophisticated pursuit, creating the art of medieval craft beer. Indeed, amidst their chanting, manuscript copying, and reflections on celibacy, monks were subtly establishing themselves as the original brewmasters of Europe. Far from being casual drinkers, they ran full-on brewing operations in their monasteries, and they were good at it. Truly excellent. What is it about monks? Monasteries offered a tidy environment, a sense of stability, and were populated by men who had the luxury of time, education, and access to ample resources. Brewing became an integral part of the monastic routine, akin to praying, fasting, and subtly critiquing one another's handwriting. They prepared for visitors, for travelers, for goodwill, and naturally, for their own enjoyment. Let's be honest, Brother Pius was definitely enjoying a pint in the time between Vespers and Matins. They also refined their recipes. In contrast to those who merely threw grains into a pot and wished for a favorable outcome, monks meticulously recorded every detail. They carefully measured the ingredients. They carefully monitored the fermentation process. They even incorporated hops into the process. Indeed, hops. The botanical that imparts bitterness to beer, allowing you to feign a refined appreciation for your IPA habit. While everyday people enjoyed light beverages, monks crafted more potent brews. Why? Simply because they had the ability to do so. Additionally, during fasting times, solid food was prohibited, but beer was allowed. This clever theological workaround led to what monks affectionately referred to as liquid bread. It contained calories. It was full of taste. It contained alcohol. What else could a secluded individual desire? Certain monasteries mastered the craft to such an extent that their beer gained renown far and wide. Residents would frequent the abbey not in search of spiritual growth, but rather for the libations. In the 14th century, numerous monasteries operated what we would now refer to as microbreweries. Instead of a guy named Chad in a flannel shirt, it was Brother Gregory with a tonsure and flawless fermentation notes. Monastic beer evolved into a recognizable brand. Even today, many beers retain names linked to ancient monasteries, demonstrating that those wise individuals truly grasped the profound connection between humanity and their beverages. Long before the age of social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, and well before a single tweet could tarnish your name, there existed taverns. And in medieval times, taverns were where everything happened. Weddings were planned there. Agreements were reached there. Conflicts erupted in that location. And yes, people got properly, gloriously, biblically drunk there. Taverns served as the medieval equivalent of both the workplace and the community gathering spot. You visited to catch up on the latest news, share whispers about your neighbors, debate tax issues, and sometimes discover if anyone had been quietly cast out. It resembled a medieval forum, but with more ale and a bit less negativity. A bit. The interior was minimalistic. A floor of dirt or straw, uneven wooden benches, a flickering hearth, and a tavern keeper whose cleaning habits this week are questionable. The atmosphere was heavy with smoke, garlic, and a sense of remorse. On lively evenings, you may encounter wandering musicians, spirited dice games, or even a spontaneous pig auction happening between rounds. What do you have on the drink menu? Unassuming. Typically ale, perhaps cider, and if fortune favored you. Or you had some wealth, a touch of wine. However, there was no one who showed up for the diversity. They arrived seeking the disorder. In a world where individuals toiled from sunrise to sunset under harsh circumstances, a tavern served as more than just a place to drink. It served as a release for built-up tension. It's also a place where social boundaries faded away, if only for a moment. In the tavern, common folk could jostle with traders. Clergy might find themselves seated beside the local blacksmith, and now and then someone would begin to speak in Latin after a couple of drinks, and no one would dare interrupt. Then, all were on the same level when it came to ale, until someone knocked over a jug, then all hell broke loose. Naturally, there were those who didn't quite appreciate it. Church leaders complained that taverns were dens of sin, and city councils tried regulating them with about as much success as regulating pigeons. However, the reality was straightforward. Taverns played a crucial role. They fostered connections within communities, provided an outlet for stress, and offered individuals a space to engage in debates, gamble, and reminisce. Everything happens in a single night. In medieval Europe, the level of intoxication you achieved and the amount of dignity you sacrificed in the process frequently hinged on your social standing. Because indulging wasn't a universal experience for everyone. It arrived in a cascade, resembling a wobbly wedding cake with a goat dozing beneath it. Let's begin from the ground up. The peasant. The typical village worker consumed light beer or diluted cider during the day, not for celebration, but for sustenance. It served as a source of energy, a replacement for hydration, and honestly, one of the rare affordable joys in a life filled with hardships and obligations. Peasants drank from wooden cups, clay jugs, or, if things got really desperate, their hands. Indulging to excess wasn't always the intention, but during celebrations, it was a given that someone would find themselves waking up in a haystack with no recollection of the night and a mismatched shoe. Now, ascend the murky social hierarchy to the elite. In this context, alcohol represented a symbol of prestige. Nobles sipped wine, preferably imported, extravagantly priced, and presented in a goblet that could also function as a helmet. Wine was frequently enhanced with sweetness, spices, or fragrances. As nothing exudes authority, quite like sipping something reminiscent of your grandmother's wardrobe. Feasts in noble courts were extravagant affairs, featuring a continuous flow of courses, limitless refills, and toasts that seemed to stretch on indefinitely, allowing for the possibility of growing a beard mid-sentence. Being inebriated at court was a frequent occurrence, even anticipated, but it needed to be executed with elegance. Slurred Latin and wine-stained garments? Excusable. Vomit on the bishop's lap? A bit reduced. Then there were the monks and clergy, existing in their own realm, officially celibate, sometimes sober. Monasteries crafted beer, yet the priests preferred wine. For ceremonial reasons, naturally, which is a courteous way of indicating. They were often a bit inebriated by evening prayers, but regardless of social standing, the one common guideline was to avoid waste. Alcohol was valuable. Every drop came from labor, fermented, stored, and hauled by someone who'd rather be napping. You consumed what was available, and you honored it. Or perhaps you had a disagreement with the baker and found yourself in a bit of a predicament. Drinking served as the great leveler in medieval times. It dulled misery for the poor and inflated egos for the rich. Everyone benefited in some way. Some have hangovers, while others have stories to tell. Have you ever thought about what medieval folks sipped on to relax after a long day of hard work, dealing with disease, or managing the burdens of the church? Let's start with ale, the essential foundation of the medieval drink selection. It was pure, still, and frequently dense enough to savor. Crafted from barley, oats, or any grain that managed to escape the clutches of rats that week. Ale was available in various strengths. Light beer, easygoing, classic ale, noteworthy, and the type that could make you glimpse celestial beings or begin to share verses. At times, it can be a combination of both. Next came mead, the beverage favored by those seeking a touch of the legendary. Crafted from fermented honey and water, it offered a delightful sweetness and robust flavor, making it a favorite at celebrations or among those seeking a more dramatic beverage than standard beer. If ale was the village plumber, mead was the bard with the lute and an awkward gaze. Then arrived wine, primarily enjoyed by the affluent, the monks, and those residing in southern Europe, where grapes were more abundant. Then ethics. However, the wine of the medieval era was quite different from today's modern Merlot. It frequently had an unpleasant taste, lacked strength, and was commonly blended with various herbs, spices, or even seawater. Yes, seawater. Nothing exudes sophistication quite like enjoying a Cabernet that carries notes of brine and regret. You also enjoyed cider and perry, delightful fermented beverages made from apples or pears that are cherished in orchard areas. Deliciously bubbly and deceptively easy to consume, particularly if you've already indulged in a couple of tankards as part of your carefree day off. And then everything took a strange turn. Some people enjoyed braggart, a medieval blend of beer and mead, typically potent enough to strip paint. Some found delight in posset, an unusual warm blend of curdled milk and ale. Imagine a frothy concoction crafted by someone harboring frustration towards cows. Sometimes herbal mixtures were utilized, with wine infused with plants that claimed to remedy everything from headaches to supernatural troubles. Their effectiveness in curing anything remains uncertain. However, after 3 cups, it seemed like nobody was concerned, and at last there was ale blended with raw egg for the daring and those who might soon feel queasy. Did it improve your strength? Perhaps. Did it smell like something you'd regret? Definitely. If you believe that people in medieval times indulged frequently on ordinary days, witnessing them at a feast would truly astonish you. These were not the kind of polite dinners your grandma used to host. They were endless festivities of indulgence. Delicious food, uplifting tunes, joyful celebrations, and generous amounts of drinks. And indulging in alcohol wasn't merely tolerated. The seating arrangement was essentially designed with that in mind. Celebrations took place for every reason. Celebrations, festive occasions, the arrival of a new royal baby, the joyful return of a crusader, or simply a lord's whim to flaunt his latest falcon-shaped goblet. The festivities kicked off at an early hour. Guests were encouraged to indulge in generous servings of wine or strong ale, with a spirited participation expected from everyone. Declining a toast might come off as impolite, questionable, or perhaps even lacking in national spirit. In some courts, it was practically treason. Toasts were more than mere celebrations. They were intricate ceremonies filled with speeches, blessings, and the rare passive-aggressive poem. And each toast was accompanied by additional food, extra drinks, and often more questionable choices. Nobles sipped from elaborate vessels crafted from gold, silver, or intricately carved horn, as even their indulgence was a spectacle to behold. In the background, attendants hurriedly replenished cups, tidied up the makeshift plates crafted from stale bread, all while silently observing the guests. As the night wore on and barriers faded away, the gathering frequently transformed into a haze of singing, playful wrestling, and lengthy tales that no one really requested. Historical accounts reveal instances of individuals engaging in duels. During feasts, arguing over who shared the wittier joke or whose beard possessed greater nobility. And then arrived the performers. Minstrels, dancers, jugglers, or that one fellow who created questionable shadow puppets after indulging in too much mead, all powered by the same abundant vessels. If everything went smoothly, you departed feeling a delightful sway, satisfied, with roast goose and a joyful spirit. If things went awry, you found yourself waking up beneath a table beside a jester and a shattered lute, vowing never to indulge again. See you next week. Feasts were delightful disorder. What about alcohol? It served as the bonding element and the catalyst. If you believed beer pong represented the pinnacle of human achievement, let me take you on a wild journey into the unpredictable realm of medieval drinking games, where the risks were significant, the regulations were unclear, and the likelihood of injury was definitely in the air. Indulging in excess wasn't merely a byproduct of medieval gatherings. It was the highlight of the occasion, and games contributed to the progress. These were informal gatherings without any scorekeeping. No, these were activities that began with joy and concluded with someone unconscious in the turnip bin. What's a popular way to spend your time? Battle of the toasts. 2 or more individuals would compete to see who could toast the loudest, not with witty remarks, but through sheer noise. It was more about endurance than artistry, getting through each round without stumbling over the words. All for the king's goat. Another timeless activity involved rolling the dice, frequently enjoyed for beverages, coins, or dubious favors. Dice were rough, frequently fashioned from bone, and the rules shifted based on who was clear-headed enough to describe them. What if the game concluded with a claim of dishonesty? Congratulations! You've just created the concept of medieval bar fighting, which we will discuss later. There was also a competition to see who could drink the most in the shortest amount of time. While the name may lack creativity, it certainly enjoys widespread popularity. This was more about gaining recognition and perhaps pushing the limits a bit too far. Medieval men took great pride in their ability to consume tankards, often challenging themselves to see how many they could drink before collapsing into a hedge. In esteemed gatherings, drinking games were enveloped in traditions and decorum, akin to chivalrous vows. A woman could dare a knight to down an entire goblet in her name, a challenge he would embrace with flair, perhaps while crafting a brief epic verse, aiming to keep my composure while reciting the rhyming couplets. Naturally, there were games that had physical repercussions. Contests of balance, spinning challenges, and spontaneous wrestling erupted when someone confused the minstrel for an ogre. The goal was never truly about victory. The aim was to enjoy more beverages, share more laughter, and put the local furniture to the test. In medieval Europe, consuming alcohol was not only socially embraced, but also supported by religious beliefs. The church might have disapproved of taverns and brawls, yet when it involved wine, it was a sacred affair. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Wine for communion. During each Mass, the priest would raise the chalice, utter a few holy words, and just like that, it transformed to the actual blood of Christ. And then he took a sip, frequently several times a week, and at times even every day. While it wasn't a scene of priests engaging in keg stands within the cathedral, the ritual did involve a consistent and dignified consumption of wine, all for the sake of salvation. Wine was not only meant for communion. Monasteries crafted barrels of the beverage, originally intended for sacred purposes, yet there always seemed to be a surplus for, shall we say, individual contemplation. Monks meticulously recorded their vintages, celebrated the heavenly essence of fermentation, and sometimes concluded their sermons with a touch of slurred speech. Then there were saints who seemed to be the ultimate guardians of celebration. Saint Bridget of Ireland once offered a prayer for a lake of beer for the celestial beings. Indeed, that is a genuine quote. Saint Arnold of Soissons is believed to have rescued countless lives by encouraging people to choose beer over water during a plague. Research? Absolutely not. Unintentionally, right? Definitely. Even religious festivals served as opportunities to indulge in drinking. Christmas, Easter, and saints' days were more than just occasions for prayer. They were for indulging in delightful meals, sharing songs, and soothing your spirit and senses with ale or mead. Pilgrims frequently paused at monasteries, where monks provided warmth and comfort through bread, shelter, and just the right amount of wine to make the next part of their journey a bit more intriguing. What if you collapsed beneath the altar table? You were simply finding peace in the presence of the Lord. Naturally, the Church disapproved of overindulgence in alcohol. However, similar to many regulations from the medieval era, the application was often erratic. A noble may receive a serious lecture. A commoner could find themselves locked in the stocks. A practitioner of tranquility? He would simply be moved to tasks that require less immediate attention. Let's get real. In a realm where beer reigned supreme over water, it was inevitable that someone would push their limits too far. Although medieval society enjoyed lavish feasts and the merriment that came with a little drink, there were boundaries to their indulgence. Once you transitioned from cheerfully tipsy to yelling at goats and attempting to joust a fence, that's when the town stocks became relevant. Indeed, the challenging stocks, the preferred mix of discipline and communal amusement in medieval times. These wooden devices secured your ankles, wrists, or neck, leaving you immobilized in the village square, vulnerable to the weather, onlookers, and sometimes a rather discontented sheep. Being placed in the stocks for public drunkenness was not uncommon. If you were boisterous, disrespectful, made a mess in a revered place, or chose to expose yourself to a local bishop, you could wake up to a morning of public embarrassment. The consequences extended beyond the physical realm. It was profoundly communal. Your friends, neighbors, and that one overly curious blacksmith's wife all had the chance to see you fidget, fret, and gradually regain your composure under the bright sun. Kids may toss out aged veggies. Monks may softly recite sacred texts in your presence. One might certainly remark, "Experienced that already." Interestingly, the consequences weren't always about drinking itself, but rather about not doing it well. Nobles could indulge in excessive drinking at feasts without facing any repercussions. However, if a shoemaker stumbled into a pig trough after having 3 pints, in an instant it became a profound ethical dilemma. Officials viewed public intoxication as a serious threat, not due to the alcohol itself, but because it caused people to behave in unexpected ways. Slurred speech and stumbling were acceptable in private settings. However, in the streets, that's how unrest begins, or even worse, traditional folk tunes. In certain towns, there were individuals known as ale tasters, tasked with ensuring that the beer served in taverns wasn't excessively strong, or at least remained within the limits of the mayor's tolerance. However, public intoxication was seldom regarded as an offense. It was a slight embarrassment, a gentle reminder from society. You are not a wrongdoer, just a person who embraced a bit of the past on a Wednesday evening. And after spending a few hours in the stocks, you left feeling rigid, embarrassed, and likely contemplating your next trip to the tavern. Simply ... more peaceful this time. Hangovers in the Middle Ages were just as dreadful as one might imagine. Without the ibuprofen, and without any understanding from those living nearby, you find yourself lying on a bed of straw, the church bells ringing loudly as if signaling the end of the world, and a goat is watching you intently, having discovered you in its stall after you fainted once more. What remedies did people in medieval times use to alleviate hangovers? To begin with, they persevered through it. You had tasks to complete. You had responsibilities. You couldn't afford to voice your discomfort, as your head felt like it was about to burst apart. You quietly whispered something about wrongdoing and stepped back into the light of day. However, a few individuals, bless their hearts, genuinely attempted real solutions. Is there a well-known option? Uncooked eggs and beer. Because nothing promotes rejuvenation like combining what harmed you with what could potentially make you ill. Some people praised vinegar, fennel tea, or infused herbs, which often had a flavor reminiscent of grass and melancholy. If you had the fortune of consulting a physician, and I use that term lightly, they might discuss uneven humors and perhaps draw a bit of your blood. Nothing alleviates a hangover quite like a little bit of blood loss, does it? Some simply continued to drink. That's serious business. The concept of hair of the dog has been around for quite some time. People in medieval times thought, since I already feel terrible, I might as well enjoy a comforting mug of solace. The church, as expected, offered a contrasting perspective. Hangovers weren't merely your body rebelling. They were a divine reprimand. The remedy was reflection, and perhaps abstaining from certain indulgences. Nothing alleviates a headache quite like remorse and a stale piece of bread. To be honest, many individuals likely wouldn't refer to it as a hangover. They simply referred to it as Thursday. However, it's important to understand that indulging excessively in medieval times came with its own set of repercussions. The distinction is that you weren't able to share it on Twitter. You just woke up, cleared the remnants of the night from your face, and wished no one recalled your escapades with that treasure. At a certain moment in the past, an individual discovered the process of creating alcohol. Just a few minutes later, another person ended up getting hit in the face with a mug. Step into the tumultuous realm of medieval tavern brawls, where your reputation, your ale, and your dubious vocal talents might lead you into a world of trouble. Taverns were lively and bustling environments. They were noisy, filled with smoke and unpleasant odors, often crowded with individuals who had spent their day laboring in trenches, managing horses, or disputing with their landlords, and were now several ales in, brimming with confidence. Disagreements erupted over the smallest of issues: spilled drinks, unpaid debts, dice games gone awry, debates over the superior beard, insults exchanged about oxen, and sometimes simply because one person deemed the other too French. That was genuinely offensive in some places. Weapons were not meant to be taken into taverns. But let's face it, this rule was about as useful as no smoking signs in bars back in the 1990s. Daggers, clubs, and even walking sticks could become tools of conflict if tensions escalated. What if you were unarmed? Absolutely fine. The tankards were quite weighty, and the wooden stools were no lighter. Tavern brawls varied from brief scuffles to complete mayhem that left furniture in ruins. At times, the tavern keeper would make an appearance. At times, they observed from afar, arms folded, pondering the number of tables that would require attention the next day. Local authorities often seemed indifferent unless a tragedy occurred. Unless someone significant was hurt. It was like two peasants flailing about in the corner, while a lute player continued to strum, oblivious to the chaos. Just another typical Friday night. However, if a dignitary or an esteemed trader became involved, the law would promptly intervene and arrangements would be made. Or even worse, you faced a hefty fine equivalent to a month's pay and found yourself barred from the tavern. It was essentially a form of banishment from the medieval era. Even with the dangers involved, brawling was an integral aspect of tavern life. You stepped in for a refreshing drink and some good times. At times, you experience both. There are moments when you end up with a black eye and a tale that's best kept from your grandmother. Drinking in medieval times was an activity that included everyone, not just men. Indeed, if you entered a tavern or purchased ale from the corner stall, there was a strong likelihood that a woman had crafted it, sold it, and perhaps even splashed it on you if you got too outspoken. Welcome the alewife. A frequently overlooked yet significant figure in the drinking culture of medieval times. Alewives were more than just women who brewed beer. For centuries, they were the leading brewers. Brewing was viewed as a household task, similar to baking or churning butter. However, it might leave you feeling a bit tipsy and sometimes facing the wrath of grumpy blacksmiths nursing their hangovers. These women crafted small batches of ale at home, then served it from jugs, windows, or quaint little stalls known as tippling houses. Some worked from their kitchens, while others managed bustling public ale houses. Indeed, they might find themselves in a bit of a predicament, particularly if their brew was overly potent, too diluted, or inexplicably caused individuals to see things and engage in paltry brawls. Alewives had to adhere to local brewing regulations, which varied based on the town, the year, or the whims of the inspector. Prices were set by law, meaning that if an alewife charged too much or diluted her product, she could face fines, public humiliation, or be required to don a paper hat proclaiming her as a poor brewer. Absolutely, indeed. There were tavern maids bustling about in the alehouses, serving drinks, cleaning tables, and doing their best to avoid unwanted advances from patrons like Oswald, who had 3 teeth and a bit too much mead in his system. These women needed to be resilient, quick, and skilled in their sharp remarks. Some were simply working to make a living, while others charmed their way to increased gratuities. A handful of affluent individuals indulging in libations and enjoying their early retirement. The enchanting dream of the medieval era. However, women played roles beyond just serving drinks. They also enjoyed some drinks, particularly during celebrations, ceremonies, or after managing a group of 8 kids and a stubborn cow. While drunkenness wasn't celebrated among women, it certainly wasn't uncommon. And if the ale was delightful, and the night stretched on, a few verses of cheeky song were perfectly acceptable. During the Middle Ages, if you were feeling unwell, hurt, or even just appeared slightly uneasy, someone would surely offer you drink of alcohol. Perhaps it was a clergyman. Perhaps it was your barber surgeon. Perhaps it was your grandmother. However, it's comforting to know that in medieval times, the go-to remedy for nearly everything was simply to enjoy a drink. To be honest, there were times it was beneficial. Not because alcohol solves anything, but because when you're feeling lightheaded, unwell, or recovering from a jousting accident, a few glasses of wine can help ease the discomfort. Welcome to the world of medieval medicine, where alcohol served as a remedy for pain, a disinfectant, a calming agent, and sometimes even a morning meal. Medical professionals, and that term is certainly carrying a lot of weight, often recommended wine and ale. If you were feeling under the weather, sipping on warm wine, battling a headache, enjoying wine infused with mint, dealing with digestive troubles, trying mead mixed with herbs, all served in a rustic medieval mug, along with a hopeful prayer. Even monks crafted herbal liqueurs to promote well-being. These were potent, sugary mixtures infused with wormwood, sage, or anything that appeared somewhat herbal from the garden. Today, we would refer to that as digestive. In those days, it was referred to as medicine, with the mere hope that survival was on the horizon. One notably daring solution included infusing herbs in brandy and consuming it to purify the body's balance. Whether it improved anything beyond your self-esteem is open to discussion. However, you ceased your complaints, possibly due to a sense of numbness or a state of unconsciousness. In the realm of battlefield medicine, alcohol served a significant function. It sanitized injuries, or more precisely, it was excruciating and pulled your attention away from the man using a former farming implement to amputate your leg. At times, a potent beverage was provided to the patient prior to the amputation. At times, they found themselves as the recipient, simply sharing the bottle among others. However, individuals in medieval times utilized alcohol for more than just treating injuries. It was recommended for feelings of sadness, symptoms of illness, recovery after giving birth, and spiritual distress. If you were inhaling, there was likely a bottle in the mix. Was it effective? From time to time. Did it improve things? Additionally, from time to time. However, during a time when bloodletting was seen as a legitimate practice and leeches were almost like colleagues, alcohol was at least a more enjoyable mistake. Governments have a knack for spotting when people are enjoying themselves and finding ways to impose taxes on that enjoyment. In medieval Europe, alcohol was certainly not an exception. Drinking was more than just a hobby. It served as a driving force for the economy. Producing, distributing, and providing alcoholic beverages led to job creation, increased revenue, and offered local governments yet another opportunity to enact overly theatrical regulations. In certain towns, there were official taste testers known as ale conners, responsible for ensuring that the beer met standards of quality, legality, and the right amount of froth. Not a bad deal, as long as you were okay with gout. Taverns required permits to function, although the definition of a permit differed greatly. In certain locations, it was an official stamped paper. For some, it was merely a spoken arrangement with the local bailiff, accompanied by a sack of onions as security. However, if you offered ale without authorization, you could face fines, disgrace, or be shut down quicker than a badly performed lute solo. Prices were also controlled. Absolutely, there are limits on beer prices. Officials displayed ale prices on wooden boards, and those tavern keepers or alewives who set their prices too high faced penalties, at least in theory. In reality, if your drink was potent and your relative was employed at the mayor's office, the rules tended to bend. and then arrived the taxes. Ale levies, wine levies, malt levies. In certain regions, there were even taxes imposed on drinking vessels. Picture being penalized for having a cup that was just a bit too elegant. Welcome to the era of medieval commerce. Monasteries and nobles frequently enjoyed tax exemptions, as it seems that nothing quite embodies divine favor like avoiding duties on your barrels of mead. In the meantime, peasants found themselves burdened with fees on every batch they brewed for family gatherings, even when it resembled a bland disappointment. However, these regulations did not prevent individuals from consuming alcohol. They simply enhanced their creativity. Certain taverns ran in the shadows. Some brewers conducted their business away from the official eye, while others just greased the palms of the right individuals, hoping their records wouldn't be scrutinized too thoroughly. The outcome? A vibrant, somewhat illicit, beer-fueled economy thriving on loopholes, chatter, and the deep-rooted human craving for a refreshing drink after a tiring day. In summary, medieval drinks were more than just a social activity. It was a matter of professionalism, and business was thriving. As the medieval period drew to a close, there was a noticeable change in both the manner and the types of beverages consumed by people. Gradually, gently, and with significantly fewer pigs in pubs, a significant shift occurred with the emergence of more potent alcoholic beverages. Distillation, that fascinating process that transforms wine into a substance capable of cleansing wounds and wiping away memories, became increasingly sophisticated during the late Middle Ages. This led to the creation of early forms of brandy, aqua vitae, and other intensely strong beverages that made beer seem like a child's drink. Simultaneously, global commerce grew significantly. Unique spices, innovative brewing methods, and ultimately, sugar and rum found their way into Europe. With each arrival of imported goods, the drinking culture transformed. Mead and ale started to fall behind as wine and spirits gained popularity, particularly among the affluent, who now desired to enjoy imported claret and feign their connection to the Renaissance. Pubs have received a refresh. By the 16th century, some transformed into inns and public houses, the early precursors of the pub. Drinking had transformed into more than a mere after-work activity. It evolved into an organized aspect of travel, governance, and even mail services. Indeed, medieval postal workers enjoyed their drinks. Often. Then the Reformation arrived, dampening spirits and instilling a sense of guilt among many in the gathering. Reformers such as Calvin and Knox disapproved of public drunkenness. Out of nowhere, drinking turned into a matter of ethics, with taverns labeled as havens of vice, laziness, and dubious musical performances. Authorities tightened regulations. The number of licensing requirements surged, and tax rates rose. Public drunkenness faced growing legal restrictions. Yet the craving for a refreshing beverage? It always lingered. It simply adjusted. Alewives faced exclusion from guilds and male-run breweries. The production of wine was overseen by officials designated by the state. Spirits gained popularity among the court elite. Gradually, drinking transitioned from a daily requirement to a more social decision. The transition from the Middle Ages to modern times was significant. As we improved sanitation, enjoyed cleaner water, and reduced our mead consumption, we began to overlook the profound connection that alcohol had with our survival, celebrations, and social interactions throughout history. In ancient Babylon, love was a complex and nuanced experience, far from the idealized notions we often imagine. It was a battle, and like any effective battle, it needed careful planning, spells, and occasionally the help of a rather irritable demon. Babylonian love magic embraced the mystical, boldly engaging with the supernatural. If charm alone couldn't capture someone's heart, you might resort to inscribing their name on a cursed clay figurine and burying it close to their entrance dot in an instant. You gained the upper hand. Who needs flowers when you've got the art of raising the dead? The Babylonians thought that love could be called forth or controlled through specific rituals and invocations. Ancient tablets from Mesopotamian archives detail rituals in which a priest or sorceress invokes Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, to influence the desires of a chosen individual. And Ishtar was far from the soft, harp-playing kind. She once obliterated an entire mountain range after being cast aside by someone. Indeed, she had a deep understanding of both retribution and fervor. Certain incantations incorporated strands of hair, bits of nail, or droplets of blood, natural elements to bind the beloved's essence to the one casting the spell. These were either incinerated in small flames, transformed into oils, or enclosed within fabric pouches. These pouches would be concealed beneath thresholds or tucked away in beds to warm the heart of the person of interest. That heating could occasionally lead to fixation or insanity. But hey, what's love without a few unexpected twists? It wasn't solely focused on allure. Babylonian texts also refer to protective spells, intended to ward off unwanted suitors or diminish a rival's allure dot in a particularly wicked spell. Woman implored the deities to ensure her rival's breath reeked like that of a decaying body. Gentle, impactful, and sure to disrupt any serene evening ambience. This blend of passionate longing and celestial influence forged a society where affection became a struggle, entwined with remnants of ash, sweetness, crimson, and murmurs. You didn't merely wish for someone's affection. You pulled them into a otherworldly struggle, employing scrolls, dolls, and unseen forces to sway the balance. In Babylon, affection seldom flowed both ways. It was a deliberate choice, and when words fell short, incantations took over, inscribed in ancient script, murmured to the cosmos, and bound with holy mist. Babylonian love may not have been innocent, but it was undeniably powerful. In ancient Greece, love spells focused more on control and urgency than on romance and affection. The Greeks referred to this enchanting fixation as eros, yet it lacked the tender warmth that inspires verses of love. It was a chaotic whirlwind, more likely to leave someone seeking solace in a quiet sanctuary than strolling peacefully through serene landscapes. Dark Greek love magic consisted of two potent branches: Agoj spells and Philia spells. Agoj spells were designed to pull someone in, sometimes in a very literal sense, towards the practitioner. Typically employed by men, these incantations were designed to ignite passion, induce wakefulness, and even lead the target to experience visions until they yielded to their cravings. A common Agoj spell could express something along the lines of ignite her heart until she approaches me on her hands and knees. Indeed, crawling. The Greeks were quite direct in expressing their intentions. The incantations were frequently inscribed on lead tablets, affordable, sturdy, and rich in meaning, then interred in graveyards or wells, locations deemed portals to the realm below. What's the reason? These incantations frequently called upon spirits from the underworld or unsettled ghosts to handle the more unpleasant tasks. Did you wish for someone to experience love? So, you'd reach out to someone who's no longer around and has all the time in the world? Conversely, Philia spells focused more on managing affection. These were frequently utilized by women aiming to foster harmony in their marriages or manage their husband's attention elsewhere. Instead of invoking intense desire, Philia spells emphasized balance and devotion. They were occasionally blended into wine or oil, serving as enchanting relaxants concealed within everyday practices. Naturally, herbs and potions contributed significantly. The ancient Greeks utilized aphrodisiacs such as mandrake root, which had a somewhat human-like appearance and was thought to emit a scream when pulled from the ground. maybe not the best. Choice for a first date. Enchanting mixtures often featured honey, myrrh, and even crushed bones blended into beverages or applied to garments. A notably potent recipe included menstrual blood, a deeply personal and impactful element thought to connect a man's spirit to that of his beloved for eternity. Greek erotic magic lacked the romantic qualities we associate with modern interpretations. It was calculated, instinctive, and often focused on dominance rather than agreement. Eros, the deity of affection, was frequently portrayed with a blindfold and equipped with arrows for a purpose. Affection wasn't merely oblivious, it posed a significant threat, and the Greeks were well aware of how to harness its power. In matters of love, the ancient Romans built upon the foundations laid by the Greeks, infusing it with greater quantities of wine, heightened drama, and a multitude of legal intricacies. Roman love spells were not just simple customs shared among solitary souls. They were seen as instruments of persuasion, maintaining one's standing, and at times, outright retribution. In a world fixated on structure and integrity, manipulating someone else's wants emerged as a subtle method of reshaping destiny. Roman love magic took on various forms, with defixiones or binding spells standing out as some of the most favored. These were often inscribed on delicate sheets of lead and folded, like forbidden love letters before being interred in tombs or cast into rivers. The concept? Engage the target's mind, body, and spirit by calling upon ancient deities such as Pluto or Hecate. The writing was frequently incisive, authoritative, and brimming with urgent requests. Some resemble legal notifications. Some were reminiscent of overly dramatic fan fiction. A hauntingly vivid instance from Rome implores a woman named Victrix to be consumed with affection for me, Marcus, like a flame, both day and night, until she can no longer endure my absence. That sounds enchanting. It's only when you discover that Marcus concealed that spell beside a child's grave to enhance its potency. The principles of Roman morality, not necessary. Fragrances and essential oils offered a different path for enchanting. Influence. Women would apply mixtures infused with herbs such as vervain, mint, or even belladonna to themselves or their desired partners, which could either calm or invigorate based on the amount used. A woman with a delightful fragrance may have more than just impressing in mind. She might have been subtly enchanting her toga-clad crush with a tiny potion of affection. One particularly intriguing Roman tactic was the so-called Venus wine, a powerful love potion reportedly made from animal parts, exotic herbs, and bodily fluids. It was said that slaves and courtesans would secretly add it to their masters' goblets to shift the dynamics of control. If the potion fails, perhaps the hangover will bring about some openness. Roman law, intriguingly, recognized love magic, yet it did not categorize it as a crime driven by passion. Rather, it was categorized as witchcraft and deemed a societal danger if it interfered with property rights or inheritance. Romance was enjoyable and lighthearted until a senator found themselves under a spell of solitude. For the Romans, love was intertwined with politics, infused with magic, and sometimes a bit toxic, just as they preferred it. In ancient Egypt, love held a revered, enchanting, and perilous quality when entrusted to the wrong priest. Egyptian love spells intertwined deep faith, lyrical imagery, and, when necessary, cunning tactics. These were not the musings of a lovesick adolescent. These were thoughtfully crafted ceremonies, frequently documented on papyrus and supported by the power of gods such as Hathor, Isis, and Bez. If your heart was shattered in Egypt, you held back the tears. You summoned. Egyptians thought that love could be brewed like a magical elixir, or revealed like a hidden treasure, and their enchantment mirrored this. A popular method involved the dream spell, where the spellcaster called upon a deity or demon to manifest in the dreams of the intended individual. The incantation would murmur, "You yearn for her as the parched. Earth yearns for a downpour." Refined? Absolutely. Deceptive? Definitely. A papyrus from the Ptolemaic period reveals a spell that compares the heart of the target to a trapped bird, restless and flapping until it finds its way back to the one who invoked the enchantment. These texts were frequently inscribed in red ink, regarded as having magical power, and occasionally featured small illustrations of bound figures or symbolic birds with clipped wings. A visual reminder, just in case the deities required a nudge. However, it wasn't solely focused on metaphor. Tangible items held influence as well. Wax figures were utilized to symbolize both the one casting the spell and the intended recipient. These dolls were infused with fragrances, punctured with needles, or stored in jars alongside inscribed love spells. The outcomes fluctuated greatly, influenced by the objective, whether it was driven by enthusiasm or consequence. Seeking warmth? Gently massage the doll with lotus oil. Seeking payback for being turned down? Incorporate scorpion venom. Elixirs gained popularity, frequently incorporating elements such as honey, wine, mandrake root, and predictably, blood. Certain rituals involved combining menstrual blood with beer, thought to connect a man's spirit to a woman's through a shared essence. Present that at a contemporary cocktail lounge and observe the outcome. The unique aspect of Egyptian love magic was its connection to the divine. These were not just simple tricks. They were calls to the night. Affection and desire were viewed as inherent manifestations of a higher purpose. However, the celestial intention might be swayed by the perfect melody, the appropriate phrases, and a well-energized talisman, elements that balanced on the edge of healing, enchantment, and sheer toxicity. You were creating a serene atmosphere, inviting tranquility and comfort. You were giving them a mix of mind-altering substances, animal components, and occasionally your own bodily fluids. If contemporary romance is tricky, at least it rarely includes ground-up ancient remains. In the realm of ancient love magic, the selection of ingredients was not based on their aroma or flavor. They were chosen for their profound significance and spiritual impact. The greater the intensity or forbidden nature of the object, the stronger its perceived influence was thought to be. Hair, fingernails, saliva, and menstrual blood were frequently utilized due to their connection to one's personal essence. To connect with someone, you required a piece of them, or a piece of yourself. However, certain recipes transcended the individual experience. In Babylon, incantations occasionally required remnants of lion skin, crocodile fat, or the plumage of night-dwelling birds. Beings believed to exist in the spaces between realms. In Egypt, scorpion venom could be applied to amulets or blended with myrrh to evoke a mix of attraction and fear. In Rome, rituals sometimes incorporated the ashes of charred bones or, unsettlingly, the remains of executed individuals. If affection couldn't be gained, it would be taken from the realm of the departed. A rather peculiar Greek recipe directed the individual to acquire bat bones. Blend them with honey and wine, and place the concoction under a statue of Aphrodite illuminated by moonlight. Consume it, and your target will be overwhelmed with longing. Certainly, it could also become quite upset, without a doubt. Numerous concoctions blurred the boundary between allure and danger. Belladonna, mandrake, and henbane were all widely used components. When consumed in moderation, they brought about a sense of lightheadedness and emotional vulnerability. When consumed in excess, let's just say affection turned everlasting, but in a rather morbid fashion. Men often employed love spells to ignite desire, while women tended to utilize more nuanced methods, such as enchanting their attire, crafting, food magic, or creating charm bags stitched with silk and herbs. These could be tucked away in pillows or concealed beneath beds. A Babylonian incantation advises a woman to apply a sacred oil to her breasts prior to embracing her lover, infusing the experience with both allure and magic. Not every ancient love spell was designed to spark desire. Some were hidden traps, cloaked in alluring phrases, yet filled with malice. These lacked a shared longing. They revolved around control, degradation, or retribution. And their real intention wasn't affection, it was mastery. In ancient Greece and Rome, numerous so-called love spells were, in fact, Defiction's binding curses designed to overpower the will of the victim. They could be expressed in a gentle manner. Could she focus her thoughts solely on me? However, their approaches were quite unsettling. The intention was to disrupt the person's emotional autonomy, leaving them restless, fixated, and emotionally bound. It certainly felt like a battle of the mind. These enchantments frequently focused on enhancing both mental and physical well-being. A well-known Greek curse would invoke the powers of the underworld to restrain the target's limbs, tongue, and even their most private parts, leaving them powerless unless they returned to the one who cast the spell. Lead tablets marked with these curses were carefully folded, representing the sealed destiny of the victim, and placed in graves, wells, or crossroads, transitional spaces where the divine and human realms intersected. One notorious Roman tale tells of a woman pleading with Pluto to drive her thoughts to madness, compelling her to search for me in the streets. It contained precise physical directives: restrain her knees so she cannot sway with another, seal her lips so she cannot embrace another. It lacked any sense of romance. It was a haunting abduction, filled with spectral allies. At times, these love spells also ensnared a second target, a competitor. In that scenario, the enchantment would channel all of the target's enthusiasm towards the caster, while also undermining the rival's opportunities. A curse from Carthage afflicts a woman's rival with hair loss, a decaying voice, and ailments of the womb, a chilling method to guarantee she remains devoid of love and admiration. In Egypt, where the beauty of love magic often found expression in poetry, there were also whispers of curses lurking beneath the surface. Some rituals called upon lion-headed deities to disrupt the target's tranquility until they yielded. Some individuals utilized representations of the victim, whether pierced, scorched, or shattered, while chanting lines to connect their emotions to the practitioner. Even with the intricate ceremonies and haunting spells, ancient love magic often found its way beyond temples and mysterious inscriptions. A lot of it resided in the everyday, intricately blended into the patterns of daily existence. For many, performing a love spell felt as effortless as styling one's hair or serving a glass of wine. Magic intertwined seamlessly with reality. It was deeply integrated within it. In lively markets stretching from Babylon to Athens, merchants offered more than just figures and fragrances. They also offered enchanting charms. Small amulets crafted from carnelian, hematite, or bronze were tucked into tunics or stitched into clothing to draw in love or protect against unwelcome attention. Some took the form of phalluses, while others resembled tiny hands or eyes, symbols thought to either attract or repel desire. A girl may choose to wear one in hopes of attracting the gaze of a potential admirer. A wife may place one beneath her mattress to ensure her husband's fidelity. Enchanting charm has also found its way into cuisine. Meals were crafted with care and attention beyond mere seasoning. There was purpose. In ancient Rome, women were celebrated for blending aphrodisiacs into their sauces, pouring honeyed wine infused with herbs, or crafting bread kneaded with soft-spoken incantations. One Egyptian charm instructed the user to exhale into the cooking pot while uttering the beloved's name 3 times. The evening meal turned into a gentle allure. Every bite brings you nearer to a magical experience. Even cosmetics faced their own challenges. Women in ancient Greece crushed unique herbs into their eye kohl or lip pigments, convinced it would enhance the allure of their gaze. A charm from the Hellenistic era guided a woman to chant verses from a hymn to Aphrodite as she applied her makeup, turning her everyday beauty ritual into a divine practice of allure. Apparel as well held enchantment. An ancient Babylonian text suggests cleansing a garment in magical water prior to presenting it to a prospective partner. In this process, the shirt transformed into a talisman. What if that partner adorned it? The enchantment was described as constricting like a web. These simple rituals weren't always elaborate or dramatic. They were gentle, personal, taking place in kitchens, bedrooms, and bathhouses. For the ancients, love magic was not just for the desperate sorcerers or the vengeful aristocrats. It was intended for all. Despite their alluring claims, ancient love spells were never assured to be effective. And when they did, the outcomes could be unsettling, even heartbreaking. Although numerous spellcasters envisioned a harmonious bond stemming from their magical endeavors, historical writings and cautionary tales indicate that love magic frequently led to unforeseen and alarming outcomes. The same enchantment intended to unite hearts could just as readily invoke sickness, insanity, or celestial retribution. In ancient Greece and Rome, both philosophers and priests warned against interfering with the intentions of others. Theophrastus ridiculed individuals who depended on love potions, depicting them as naive and in a state of longing. Pliny the Elder boldly described love magic as a perilous superstition, cautioning that those who engage in it are either misguided or unlawful. Even in enchanting scrolls, there were frequently warnings woven in. Only summon this spirit if you are prepared for the consequences that will ensue. What came next could be quite unsettling. A Roman tale recounts the story of a man who lost his sanity due to an unsuccessful incantation. He strolled through the quiet streets under the moonlight, softly uttering the name of a woman who had faded from his memory. In a different story, a woman who relied on a potion to ensure her husband's loyalty ended up facing the consequences of his growing obsession as he turned violent and paranoid, convinced of her infidelity despite her initial good intentions. Some incantations even cautioned that the deities could become hostile towards the practitioner. In Egypt, calling upon Hathor or Isis without the right offerings might upset the goddess, leading to bad luck rather than love. A recovered scroll reveals, if she is not destined to love you, your heart will experience sorrow multiplied 10 times. That's old advice for not trying to push it. Competitors might also retaliate. A woman seeking relief may enlist the help of a counter-magician to free herself from the initial enchantment, or to retaliate against the one who cast it. These enchanting rivalries could develop into intense magical battles, with spells soaring back and forth, occasionally spanning over years. Defensive measures included protective charms, salt circles, and sacred words, perhaps most unsettlingly. Love spells frequently resulted in obsession rather than genuine affection. The individual may experience a strong pull, yet feel a sense of emptiness, caught in a struggle between physical attraction and emotional detachment. Affection transformed into an obsession, a lingering reminder of genuine intimacy, even as the deities of Babylon fade into silence and Roman gravestones decay. The essence of ancient love magic continues to pulse with life. It effortlessly adjusted. The ancient world spells, potions, and rituals transformed over time, becoming folk traditions, whispered superstitions, and even modern self-help practices we recognize today. Consider the idea of a potion that inspires affection. Although contemporary research dismisses the notion of aphrodisiac potions, health store aisles remain filled with remedies that claim to boost allure, foster closer connections, or enhance natural charm. Timeless herbs such as mandrake, damiana, and ginseng continue to be infused into teas and oils, designed to reignite desire. While we might not call upon Venus or Ishtar these days, the yearning to capture love endures. In certain regions of southern Italy, cultural practices still resonate with the ancient magical beliefs of the Romans and Greeks. Red ribbons tucked beneath mattresses, herbal sachets concealed in garments, and whispered charms handed down from grandmothers reflect the age-old rituals once observed in classical temples and on bustling street corners in certain regions of Vaud, the Middle East and North Africa. Remnants of Egyptian and Mesopotamian love magic persist through discreetly worn talismans or spells recited while preparing meals. Ancient love magic continues to thrive in modern pop culture. Stories in films, books, and songs frequently depict the captivating lover, whether it's a vampire drawn by a deep connection or a magical elixir subtly added to a glass of wine. At the perfect time, the concept of a love spell gone awry continues to captivate, echoing age-old cautions that desire created through manipulation can spiral into disorder. Interestingly, contemporary psychology has revealed similarities between ancient rituals and methods aimed at enhancing attraction, such as mirroring body language, utilizing scent to evoke emotional memories, or strategically timing confessions for maximum emotional effect. Did those ancient spellcasters employ early psychological techniques disguised in sacred language and theatrical rituals? Nowadays, enchantments for love can be found online, often adorned with soft colors and mystical designs. Etsy shops provide personalized candle spells, and TikTok features manifestation tutorials that feel like they belong on ancient scrolls. Ultimately, ancient love magic transcended the mere act of making someone fall in love with you. It was about finding balance amidst desire. The urge, enduring, frustrated, exquisitely human, stays with us. We continue to pursue that same magic. To be noticed, wanted, selected. And if a touch of enchantment aids the journey, then let it be. In ancient Greece, sport transcended mere leisure. It was a revered obligation, a celestial display of body and spirit in homage to the gods. The Olympic Games, which began in 776 BCE at Olympia, a sacred site for Zeus, clearly showcased this idea. For more than a millennium, Greeks from various city-states throughout the Hellenic world came together every 4 years, not for matters of politics or conflict, but to pursue a sense of timelessness through strength and determination. The Games were intense competitions. Athletes dedicated countless months, and at times years, honing their skills under the careful guidance of coaches, priests, and even philosophers. Prior to the competition, they pledged an oath to Zeus, vowing that they had trained sincerely and would not resort to dishonesty. This was more than a mere formality. Breaking the oath could result in public flogging or disgraceful disqualification. Respect was paramount. And if you're picturing grand chariot races and discus throws, with elegant robes billowing in the breeze, pause for a moment. Greek athletes participated in competitions without any clothing. It was a celebration of the male form, yes, but also a sign of transparency. Nothing hidden, no armor, no trickery, pure physical prowess and the wisdom of the divine. The initial occurrences were straightforward. Running events, long jump, discus throw, javelin throw, wrestling, and boxing. Then came the pancration, a fierce blend of wrestling and boxing with minimal regulations. Fingers were fractured, eyes were injured. The crowd cheered, while death wasn't a frequent occurrence. It also wasn't entirely off limits. Victory offered more than just a chance to boast. Champions were adorned with a humble olive wreath, yet they journeyed back as legends. Certain cities have granted their winners complimentary meals for a lifetime. Prem. Seating at the theater, or even tax exemptions. Writers would ETCH their legacies in time. Artists may shape their image from stone. For a brief instant, they seem to possess divine qualities. However, women were not included, not even in the audience, and definitely not as rivals. The Olympic Games were exclusively for men, while women had their own distinct festival, the Horia, which also took place at Olympia and included foot races for unmarried girls. Yet it was overshadowed by the intense, adrenaline-driven display that characterized the male domain. The Greek Olympics transcended mere competition. They were a holy flame, glowing with determination, order, and celestial hope. To sprint, to grapple, to triumph. It was more than just physical prowess. It was a cherished routine. It was a heritage. It was a battle devoid of arms. The Greeks elevated sports to a revered ceremony, while the Romans transformed them into a gruesome display. In the Roman Empire, athletics were synonymous with brutality, and nothing captured this essence quite like the gladiatorial games. These were not courteous encounters in tunics. They were intense displays of existence and mortality, crafted to captivate the audience, pay tribute to those lost, and reinforce the authority of the powerful. Gladiators often came from backgrounds such as slavery, being prisoners of war, or facing condemnation as criminals. Yet, even with their humble beginnings, they rose to prominence in every home. Some, like Spartacus, achieved legendary status, celebrated even as they were showcased in battle for the audience's enjoyment. Educated in unique institutions known as ludi, these individuals, both men and sometimes women, learned to combat with skill, accuracy, and style. The more dramatic, the more enjoyable. Bloodshed was an element of the spectacle. The Colosseum in Rome stands out as the most renowned arena, an engineering wonder capable of accommodating up to 50,000 spectators. Events were complimentary, funded by emperors and politicians, keen to gain the approval of the public. They referred to it as bread and circuses. As long as the populace is satisfied and engaged, they are less likely to scrutinize issues of corruption or domination. Combat styles differed. Some gladiators battled with swords and shields, secutores. Individuals equipped with nets and tridents, known as retieri. Every type possessed unique strengths and weaknesses, along with costumes thoughtfully designed to maintain an element of surprise and thrill in the matchups. The activities featured daring challenges, thrilling wildlife pursuits, and dramatic displays of justice. It was a blend of physical prowess, dramatic expression, and chilling suspense. However, not every battle concluded with a fatal outcome. Unlike what many think, the majority of matches concluded when one competitor gave in. Eliminating a skilled gladiator was detrimental to the enterprise. These fighters were valuable assets. Only the editor, the individual backing the games, held the power to determine whether a loser would survive or perish. And indeed, the notorious thumbs up or down sign. It might just be a misconception, ancient. Sources can be unclear, so we might as well attribute that to some cinematic embellishment. Even with their violent roles, certain gladiators rose to fame and became well-known figures. They were showered with presents, heartfelt letters from admirers, and even ancient inscriptions celebrating their stunning legs, along with occasional mentions of liberty. Former gladiators might transition into roles as trainers, bodyguards, or even gain a bit of fame. Long before the emergence of football, baseball, or basketball, the civilizations of Mesoamerica engaged in a game that blended elements of sport, religious ritual, and cosmic symbolism. Recognized today as the Mesoamerican ball game, or by its Nahuatl name, Olamolistli, this was far from a casual pastime. It was a revered practice, a means of influence, and at times, a final verdict. Played by the Olmecs, Maya, and Aztecs, The game featured a hefty rubber ball, occasionally weighing up to 4 kilograms, which players had to keep in play using only their hips, elbows, knees, or thighs. Hands off, please. The objective changed depending on the region and time period, but often it's centered around getting the ball through a vertical stone ring positioned high on the wall of the court. Given the dimensions of the ball and the restricted body parts permitted, achieving a point felt truly extraordinary. The courts, referred to as tlatlag or pak-to-pak arenas, were designed in the form of a capital I, featuring sloping sides and frequently adorned with carvings that illustrated gods, warriors, and scenes of sacrifice. These were not your typical playgrounds. They were moments where the celestial and earthly intertwined. It was more than simply about the outcome. The ball game held profound significance. It symbolized the timeless struggle between existence and oblivion, light and darkness, the divine and the abyss. In certain interpretations of the myth, the game depicted the adventure of the hero twins from the Maya Popol Vuh, who ventured into the underworld and faced off against death itself. The most debated aspect? Ritual offering. Against common belief, not every game concluded with a fatal outcome. However, numerous significant matches, particularly those associated with religious celebrations, did occur. The ones who were sacrificed didn't always end up as the defeated. In certain prestigious settings, the leader of the victorious team was presented as a revered offering to the deities, theoretically rising to divine favor through their demise. Some believe it was those who fell short that bore the consequences, a communal exhibition of universal fairness. The cultural significance of the game is unmistakable. It was more than just a source of amusement. It was a dynamic expression of belief. The sound of the rubber ball resonated through temple plazas, a pulse of faith, identity, and strength. The ancient Egyptians seamlessly integrated leisure, ritual, and preparation for the afterlife into their physical activities. Sports were more than just a pastime. They embodied the harmony of the universe, the majesty of authority, and the essence of celestial structure. Although they didn't have grand public arenas like the Greeks or Romans, Egyptian society fostered athleticism with a spiritual essence that imbued every action with significance. Wrestling stands out as one of the most vividly captured sports in ancient Egyptian history. Tomb paintings from more than 4,000 years ago depict young men engaged in grappling, showcasing intricate throws and holds reminiscent of contemporary judo techniques. These were genuine experiences. These were intense training sessions that focused on discipline, coordination, and balance. Wrestling served as a training method for soldiers and elite guards, while also holding ritual importance, representing the timeless conflict between order, mehut, and chaos. Archery was an essential sport, particularly for the pharaohs. Images of leaders shooting arrows from chariots, even while the vehicle was moving, served not only as demonstrations of prowess, but also as a form of political messaging. A powerful pharaoh was one who had the blessing of the gods, and skill with the bow demonstrated both divine approval and readiness for battle. During festivals, kings would occasionally showcase their skills by shooting arrows through copper rings, all while being celebrated by enthusiastic priests and nobles. Rowing competitions were an important aspect of ancient Egyptian culture, particularly along the Nile. Teams of young men engaged in ceremonial regattas, their synchronized strokes embodying harmony and teamwork. These served a purpose beyond mere recreation. They revered the deities and brought to life legendary adventures, such as the solar vessel of Ire traversing the skies. For the typical Egyptian, sports encompassed tug-of-war, leapfrog-style jumping, games, and rhythmic dancing, all activities that were both joyful and communal. Kids honed their skills in balancing and acrobatics, while workers maintained their physical fitness through everyday tasks. Sports events at festivals frequently acted as a way for the community to come together and engage in spiritual practices, merging physical exertion with a sense of the divine. Notably, women in ancient Egypt were more involved than in numerous other cultures of their time. Wall paintings depict graceful female dancers and gymnasts engaging in performances at banquets and ceremonies, frequently honoring themes of fertility and divine femininity. Although they may not align with today's competitive standards, these performances were filled with athleticism, elegance, and significant meaning. In ancient China, athletic activities transcended mere physical skill. They were intricately interlaced with the essence of Confucian principles, military discipline, imperial governance, and the quest for balance between the mind and body. From battlefield simulations to leisurely pursuits, physical activities catered to both the upper class and the general populace, frequently embodying profound philosophical concepts. Archery occupied a notably esteemed position. In the Confucian tradition, it was anticipated that the nobleman would excel in the art of archery, serving not just as a warrior, but also embodying the qualities of a gentleman. Competitions were structured and highly ceremonial. In the Zhou dynasty, archery contests took place in ceremonial halls, emphasizing the importance of etiquette alongside precision. Participants bowed, recited designated phrases, and aimed not to harm, but to showcase their inner strength and self-control. Reaching the goal was viewed as a symbol of achieving moral excellence. However, not every sport in ancient China was characterized by tranquility. Introducing Jizhu, the essence of Chinese polo. Polo, which emerged in the Han Dynasty and flourished during the Tang, became the favored pastime of emperors, generals, and the elite. Riding on horseback with long mallets, it was exhilarating, quick-moving, and unexpectedly risky. Emperor Shizong of Tang tragically passed away in a polo accident. Nevertheless, the activity was welcomed by both male and female members of the court. Women in elegant silk robes rode alongside their male counterparts, skillfully striking balls with remarkable agility. In a time with strict gender expectations, polo momentarily created a more equal environment. Military sports thrived as well. Cuju, a precursor to soccer, was initially created to enhance the agility and coordination of soldiers. Players skillfully maneuvered a leather ball through a net or opening in a wall with their precise footwork. As time passed, Cuju emerged as a favored civilian game, ultimately earning its place as the earliest recorded version of football. Martial arts also manifested in the realm of sport. Wushu and the early styles of Kung Fu transcended mere combat techniques. They were practices that nurtured the soul alongside the physical form. In military academies and public displays, sparring matches and strength tests were frequently held, often showcased during festive occasions. Even games such as chess and Go, Weiqi, were seen as intellectual challenges, assessing strategy, foresight, and emotional regulation. The perfect athlete was not just powerful. He exhibited a sense of equilibrium, self-control, and ethical integrity. In the ancient Near East, encompassing Mesopotamia, Assyria, Persia, and more, athletic activities were seldom merely pastimes. Physical prowess frequently symbolized strength, divine blessing, and readiness for battle. Physical achievements were not honored in solitude. They played a role in communal ceremonies, the construction of royal personas, and the cultural framework of the empire. In Mesopotamia, the earliest known urban civilizations engaged in various physical activities, although they didn't organize sports in the same structured way as the Greeks did. Wrestling, for instance, is a significant element in Sumerian art and literature. The Epic of Gilgamesh tells the story of a hero who engages in a fierce struggle with the wild man Enkidu, a contest so intense that it rattles the city's very foundations, ultimately leading to a bond of lifelong companionship between the two. Wrestling was more than just a competition. It represented pure power, authority, and admiration among peers. Monarchs were anticipated to possess great physical strength. Assyrian and Babylonian leaders frequently ordered the creation of reliefs, depicting themselves in the act of hunting lions or participating in military exercises. These were not arranged for superficial reasons. They served as expressions of political views. Taking down a lion with bare hands was more than mere bravery. It proclaimed that the monarch had the power to master disorder and maintain harmony. That lion chase? It was a powerful display of government. Messaging. The Persians during the Achaemenid Empire established one of the first structured military training programs, combining physical fitness with moral principles. Young boys learned to ride a horse, draw a bow, and speak the truth, a combination that blended athleticism, combat skills, and ethical teachings. Archery and horse riding were essential, serving not only for combat preparedness, but also as representations of high social standing. Exhibiting strength in public was also significant during temple ceremonies. Festivals frequently featured contests, such as foot races, stone lifting, or even ritualistic battles, varying by region and the deity being celebrated. These events were observed by priests, officials, and occasionally even kings, emphasizing the notion that the body, much like the city or the cosmos, required strength and discipline. A distinctive offering from the Near East was the introduction of board games such as the royal game of yore. Although these games were not physically strenuous, they were regarded as intellectual contests and occasionally served as instruments for divination. Much like in archery or wrestling, achieving success was seen as a sign of divine blessing. In the ancient civilizations of South Asia, especially within the Indus Valley and early Vedic societies, physical culture was intricately connected to social hierarchy, spiritual training, and the quest for harmony between body and mind. While archaeological findings from the Indus Valley are limited regarding structured athletic activities, insights from urban design, figurines, and subsequent Vedic literature suggest a culture that appreciated physical prowess, resilience, and self-control. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro showcased expansive public baths and open courtyards, likely serving as spaces for community gatherings, water rituals, or athletic activities. Terracotta figurines depict individuals in lively stances, including wrestlers, dancers, and acrobats, indicating that activity and performance played a vital role in everyday existence. While there may not be any recorded Olympic-style competitions, the surroundings suggest a society that focused on physical conditioning, not only for survival, but also for beauty and ceremonial practices. As society moved into the Vedic period, the focus on physical strength became more structured, especially through Dhanurveda, the ancient discipline of warfare. Young warriors honed their skills in archery, swordsmanship, chariot driving, and hand-to-hand combat. Competitions frequently took place during royal festivals, allowing princes to display their martial prowess, reinforce their authority, and forge political alliances. Wrestling, known as Malayuddha, became one of the most esteemed sports in ancient India. It transcended mere physical strength. It was a journey of the spirit. Wrestlers adhered to rigorous dietary and ethical standards, maintained disciplined lifestyles, and frequently trained in sacred spaces. The Ahara, a traditional wrestling school, operated like a sanctuary, highlighting the importance of mental clarity alongside physical prowess. The tradition endures in altered versions, remaining highly valued dot games involving balls and dice are also found in ancient Sanskrit literature. Krida, a term from Sanskrit, referred to a wide range of activities, including racing animals and engaging in strategic games. In the Mahabharata, even celestial champions such as Krishna and Arjuna engage in athletic pursuits, frequently employing their talents as symbols of the universal conflict. Yoga emerged during this time, not merely as a gentle stretching practice, but as a demanding system of physical and mental discipline focused on attaining spiritual freedom. The pursuit of athleticism in this context was not about seeking fame, but about reaching a higher state of being. While frequently neglected in historical narratives, women in ancient times did engage in sports, albeit typically within strict constraints and designated gender-specific contexts. Historically, when women engaged in training, competition, or physical performances, it was frequently associated with concepts like fertility, grace, or ritual purity, rather than being focused on public display or rivalry. Across various cultures, we encounter remarkable instances of female athleticism, occasionally honored, at times stifled, but always present. In ancient Greece, women faced restrictions not only from competing in the Olympic Games, but also from attending as spectators. They celebrated their own festival, the Heraia, in Olympia to honor the goddess Hera. Young, unmarried girls dashed barefoot in tunics that were shorter than usual, their hair flowing freely, unlike the veiled married women. Even in the absence of javelin or pancration, triumph was still celebrated with olive crowns and honored through statues. In Sparta, women experienced significantly greater freedom in athletics. Spartan girls engaged in public training for running, wrestling, and throwing, frequently showcasing their skills before male spectators. Their physical prowess was regarded as a commendable quality of the community. Resilient mothers raised resilient champions. In contrast to the rest of Greece, Sparta embraced the idea that female strength was essential to their warrior culture. In Egypt, tomb paintings and reliefs depict women joyfully dancing, leaping, and showcasing their athleticism, especially during festivals and religious ceremonies. These performances, while not competitive, were challenging and physically engaging. Some scenes even depict paired female acrobats in mid-air poses, hinting at a rich history of skilled movement and physical artistry. Ancient Rome presents richer and more intricate illustrations, although high-status Roman women seldom participated. In public athletic events, women from lower classes and slaves sometimes showcased their skills in arenas as gladiatresses or female gladiators. While uncommon, inscriptions validate their presence. Women frequently engaged in ball games, swimming, and equestrian training at private villas. During the Tang Dynasty in China, historical accounts reveal that noble women participated in polo, one of the few significant sports where women and men could compete together. Clad in elegant garments, they raced through royal halls, hitting balls with remarkable accuracy. These scenes surprised later Confucian historians, yet they reveal a fleeting moment when elite women exercised their athletic independence. Even as the throngs have disappeared and the remnants of old arenas lie quiet, the essence of historic athletics continues to resonate in today's society. From Olympic gold medals to football stadium chants, the current sports culture draws significant influence from the ancient world beyond mere inspiration. It carries forward its framework, its grandeur, and even its essence. The Olympic Games represent a true revival. Reborn in 1896, the contemporary Olympics were intentionally inspired by their ancient Greek predecessors, featuring ceremonial oaths, laurel designs, and the flame, a symbol once revered by Hestia. The values might have transitioned from divine blessing to global collaboration, yet the core objective continues to honor the physical boundaries of the human form. The legacy of Rome resonates in our passion for stadium sports, grand stadiums, organized competitions, and the drama of contemporary sports. From theme songs to extravagant commentary, reflect the spectacle of ancient gladiatorial contests in the Colosseum. The concept of cheering sections, uniforms, and the role of sports in shaping national identity has roots that can be linked to the grand displays of imperial Rome. The traditions of Mesoamerica echo in how we connect sports with ritual and meaning. While contemporary games no longer involve human sacrifice, we continue to refer to athletes as warriors, matches as battles, and trophies as revered symbols. Triumph continues to be romanticized, from the graceful archery competitions of China to the strict training methods of Persia. The concept of sport serving as a means of moral development has persisted through time. Contemporary martial arts impart more than just physical skills. They instill principles of respect, self-control, and personal growth, drawing from time-honored traditions. Even overlooked games such as Puju and Krita are experiencing a resurgence as historians and enthusiasts strive to uncover the rich roots of contemporary sports. Ancient board games are making a comeback in popular culture, not as forgotten artifacts, but as reminders that competition can take many forms beyond the physical. Perhaps most notable is how the ancient world viewed sports as something beyond mere entertainment. They served as instruments of politics, manifestations of faith, and declarations of identity. In today's world, when athletes take a knee, voice their opinions, or embody the spirit of their nations, we witness a continuation of a rich tradition, where sports serve as a powerful narrative and a lasting legacy. In summary, the ancient world created more than just games. It created the notion that through athletic pursuits, people could reach for excellence. It's not solely about power or velocity. It's also about integrity, purpose, and the endless quest for something that always seems just out of grasp. Paris, the enchanting city filled with brilliance, love, transformation, and creativity. Yet, many visitors are unaware that beneath the graceful avenues and renowned landmarks exists a different city, one that is much more somber and profoundly quiet. A darkened realm, Paris, woven with passageways, hewn from limestone, and adorned from edge to edge with skeletal remains. Welcome to the Catacombs, an expansive 200-mile subterranean realm housing the remains of more than 6 million souls. The journey into the catacombs starts off quite harmlessly. A winding staircase guides you downward, away from the clamor of everyday life. The temperature drops, shadows deepen, and suddenly you find yourself in the ossuary, a haunting place where the walls are constructed from human bones, arranged with unsettling accuracy. Skulls are lined up in neat rows, resembling trophies, while femurs are intertwined in intricate designs. Certain tunnels can take on various shapes, such as hearts, crosses, and columns. It's hauntingly beautiful and unsettlingly serene. This eerie maze was never designed for visitors. The catacombs originally started as limestone quarries, excavated as far back as the Roman era. Paris expanded by utilizing the very essence of its landscape, limestone for its structures, cathedrals, and bridges. However, by the 1700s, those vacant quarry tunnels would assume a different purpose. As the living found themselves with insufficient space for the deceased by the mid-18th century, Paris encountered a significant challenge. The cemeteries, especially the notorious Saint Innocents, were so packed that bodies were actually overflowing into adjacent structures. The foul odor. Unyielding, illness, unavoidable. Action was necessary. In 1786, authorities started the process of digging up countless bodies from overcrowded cemeteries and moving them to deserted quarries. Under the cloak of darkness, workers transported cartloads of bones, a somber march illuminated by flickering torches. The bones were initially discarded, only to be later arranged into the eerie structures we observe now. It was more than just cleanliness. It was an experience to behold. The outcome is an expansive burial ground hidden beneath a contemporary city, a realm where time halts, where the remains of those lost to disease, fighters for change, and ancient monks lie together in peace. That the catacombs are not merely a resting place for the departed. They embody the essence of a city that has perpetually balanced on the edge of elegance and deterioration. As Paris above glimmers with sophistication, beneath it lies in quietude, shrouded in darkness and observant. By the mid-1700s, Paris was becoming increasingly cramped, not for those who are alive, but for those who have passed on. The weight of cemeteries had reached a breaking point, almost as if they were on the verge of crumbling. The most notorious site, the Cimetière des Innocents, situated in the heart of the city. It had been utilized for almost a millennium, gathering centuries of remains, layer after layer, in communal burials, frequently piled 6 or 7 deep. With the increase in population, the issue also expanded. By the 18th century, the Innocents and other cemeteries had transformed into unsettling pits of decay. The aroma lingered everywhere, permeating homes, churches, and markets. Residents near Saint Innocents reported an overwhelming odor and recurring health issues. Meat went bad more quickly. The water had an unusual flavor. In certain reports, the walls of adjacent basements started to fracture and seep human remains. It wasn't merely unsettling. It posed a real threat. In 1763, King Louis XV proclaimed a royal decree that prohibited burials within the city, yet the church opposed his decision. Graveyards held a revered significance. Resting in sacred ground brings peace to the weary. However, by the 1780s, things had come to a crucial turning point. Following the collapse of a cellar wall caused by the pressure of decaying bodies on the opposite side, public health officials called for an urgent resolution. The restless souls could no longer linger in the light, step into the deserted limestone quarries. These hidden chambers, leftovers from Paris's construction surge, remained largely untouched, dim, chilly, and distant from the city's gaze, ideal for a large-scale transfer of human remains. In 1786, officials started moving remains from Saint Innocents to the underground system. The work took place during the night, away from the eyes of the public. Laborers donned flowing garments, while the carts filled with bones were shrouded in dark fabric. Clerics led the ceremonies, intoning the rituals for the departed. It was a mix of somberness and respect. The movement of bodies persisted for many years. Other burial grounds were also cleared, including Saint Etienne de Grèce, Madeleine, and Montmartre. As additional bones populated the tunnels, officials started organizing them into patterns, aiming to conserve space while also creating a solemn sense of arrangement. This situation, arising from an overwhelming loss of life and insufficient space, has given rise to one of the most haunting memorials in the world. The catacombs served not only as a solution, but also as a reminder that even in the face of mortality, the city requires careful oversight. Entering the ossuary section of the catacombs of Paris reveals immediately that this is far from a mere pile of bones. This is design. A chilling, precise balance formed not from stone or brick, but from the remnants of humanity. Skulls are arranged in orderly lines along the walls, bordered by femurs and tibias. Certain areas create designs, such as hearts, crosses, and arches. Every structure is crafted not merely to hold bones, but to elevate them into a form of underground artistry. This change was not a result of chance. The efforts of Louis-Étienne Éricard Dautry, who served as the inspector of quarries in the early 19th century, were noteworthy. Unlike previous methods that merely stacked bones in mounds, Éricard envisioned something more refined. He thought the catacombs might act as a significant and beautiful symbol, addressing the issue of overcrowded cemeteries, while also contemplating the fleeting nature of existence. With his guidance, the ossuary was meticulously cleaned, organized, and transformed into the captivating gallery we admire today. The bones, sourced from countless individuals, remained faceless and unidentifiable. There are no names, no markers, just bone upon bone, organized like shelves in a quiet library of the departed. The sole identifiers are plaques, small stone markers indicating the cemetery of origin for the remains and the year they were moved. In certain areas, lyrical writings can be found. One reads, "Halt. This is the realm of eternal rest." Concerns about structural stability were present as well. The bones served a purpose beyond mere decoration. They were utilized to strengthen the current tunnel's dot in certain locations. Bones are concealed behind retaining walls, out of sight yet crucial for supporting the slender passageways. Engineers needed to exercise caution. They were toiling deep, under the heart of Paris, and a collapse would signify far more than mere damaged tunnels. It has the potential to affect entire communities. In the beginning, illumination was minimal, with only flickering oil lamps or torches casting shadows that played across hollow eye sockets and rib cages. Today, electric lights transform this atmosphere, making it feel less foreboding, yet still dreamlike. This was more than just a resting place for bones. It was a meticulously crafted realm, a fusion of purpose, reverence, and eerie exhibition, a place intended to bring humility to the living and offer a quiet tribute to the many who have passed. In this space, each wall serves as a gentle nudge. Architecture has the potential to be truly stunning and unsettling. Venture a little further into the depths of the Paris catacombs, and the features begin to fade away, due to the absence of any 6 million forms transformed into uniform skeletons. No names, no memorials. Endless lines of indistinct skulls, quietly observing. Yet beneath this unsettling sameness lurks a chilling inquiry. Who are those individuals? The response is all of us. The catacombs contain the remains of everyday Parisians who have lived and passed away throughout the ages. Bakers, helpers, clerics, earth attendants, warriors, kids, individuals who previously filled the city's tight-knit communities, who traversed its uneven paths and gathered in its sacred spaces. As the resting places became overcrowded and the burial grounds started to decay, they were relocated here, joining this vast underground repository of remains. Certain bones are linked to those who suffered during plagues, notably the Black Death and subsequent cholera epidemics. Illness claimed lives in such staggering amounts that burial grounds turned into collective resting places. Some perished in famines, blazes, or during childbirth. Some had rested underground for centuries and were primarily skeletal when uncovered. Some were hardly in a state of decay. The experience of moving them was uncomfortable, bleak, and devoid of emotion. A remedy, not a ritual. However, not every individual among the deceased was a commoner. The remains of French nobles, clergy, and revolutionaries also ended up here, particularly during the times of political turmoil that engulfed the city. In the tumultuous times of the French Revolution, public squares became scenes of chaos where the guillotine claimed many lives. Victims were frequently discarded in mass graves before being relocated underground. There are assertions regarding the remains of notable revolutionaries, such as Danton, Robespierre, or Camille Desmoulins, were moved to the catacombs, yet there are no official records that verify their precise location. Here, distinctions and hierarchies fade away. The intriguing situation of the Val de Grace quarry section, thought to contain the remains of monks and nuns, is also worth noting. These religious communities, once hidden away in convent gardens, were ultimately moved like all others when Paris required additional space for the deceased. And then there are the little ones, delicate frames, dispersed among the piles. Nothing to indicate, nothing to remember. Simply a quiet reminder of lives that ended too soon. The catacombs, by their very nature, strip away individuality. In the end, everyone finds the same peace. Commoner, bard, sufferer of disease, or freedom fighter. The lack of identity is suffocating. 6 million lives transformed into shapes. And yet, in their silence, they convey the profound burden of history, the toll of urban existence, and a community that once stood united, now reduced to mere remnants. As visitors meander through the designated area of the catacombs, a carefully maintained and brightly illuminated mile of passageways, a hidden realm rests just below them, shrouded in mystery. A mysterious web of unexplored tunnels secured, doors and ancient routes adorned with graffiti, concealed rooms, and the sporadic underground party dot welcome to the realm of the cataphiles. Cataphiles are adventurous urban explorers who challenge city regulations to venture into the restricted areas of the Paris catacombs. They utilize concealed access points, such as manholes in parks, storm drains, or doors trapped in basements. Upon entering, they rely on their recollections, sketched maps, or instinct to find their way. There are no indications, no protective barriers, and no mobile reception. Just the soft rhythm of your footsteps resonating in the stillness of the night. This goes beyond mere excitement. For numerous enthusiasts, the catacombs represent an alternate realm, a revered area filled with history, defiance, and artistic expression. For years, they've transformed spaces within the tunnels into cozy rooms, creating makeshift libraries, art galleries, and even cinemas. Some host secret gatherings far below the surface, with generators, speakers, and candlelight casting a glow. On a dance floor constructed atop piled bones, the cataphile community is close and deeply loyal. Access is frequently limited to those who receive an invitation. Visitors, often referred to as tourists, frequently face challenges that assess their respect and ability to navigate their surroundings. The essential principle? Always respect. The remains honor sacred places and stay out of trouble. This situation is completely unlawful. In 1955, French authorities announced a ban on all unauthorized exploration of the catacombs. The dangers were, and continue to be, significant. The tunnels have some areas that are shaky and may give way. Some are overwhelmed. Some are packed with narrow passages and obstacles that can confuse even the most experienced adventurers. Throughout the years, there have been incidents involving injuries, arrests, and even fatalities. In a well-known incident, a man disappeared for several days and was discovered in a disoriented state in a secluded area, ultimately led to safety by search dogs. Even with the risks involved, the city's catacomb police, known as the cataplex, continue to fight against the trespassing. The system is just overwhelmingly large. Whenever a familiar entryway is closed off, another one emerges. The cataphiles are back. They consistently come back. For them, the catacombs represent something deeper than mere remains. They represent liberation, enigma, a realm where Paris exudes a unique essence, where moments fade away and the living coexist with the departed, not in dread, but in honor. Venture far into the Paris catacombs, and the stillness transforms, not to sounds, but to signs, inscribed notes on limestone, mysterious arrows, titles, visages, mysterious verses in diminishing hues. This is the communication of the tunnels, a vibrant collage of graffiti, signs, and hidden messages crafted by countless generations of explorers, laborers, soldiers, and those who have passed on. Ancient inscriptions date back to quarrymen long before the catacombs were used for burials. These early miners etched dates, initials, and directional arrows into the walls to keep a record of their journeys. Numerous individuals etched their names with a sense of pride, resembling time-stamped signatures upon the ground. Some noted exits, the quality of stone, or created sketches, basic illustrations of pickaxes, candles, and even ships. These weren't merely casual sketches. They were essential instruments for navigating a dark labyrinth. When the catacombs transformed into a resting place for the departed, a fresh form of expression came to life. Intricately designed plaques from the 18th and 19th centuries that indicate the origin of the bones within the cemetery. Some feature eerie epigrams. What is the nature of death? Constantly in your shadow. Some reference sacred texts or ancient sayings regarding the futility of existence and the inevitability of mortality. Yet, within the restricted areas, contemporary influences have introduced their own expression. Cataphile graffiti thrived during the 20th century. Some pieces are stunning works of art, intricate murals illuminated by flashlight, entire walls turned into radiant skeletons, legendary creatures, or dreamlike portraits. Additional signs serve a functional purpose, with arrows indicating familiar exits, nicknames carved into stone, or coded instructions such as G.V. Chalik 30 minutes to Montrouge. The tunnels possess a unique, unofficial map, an oral tradition shared among cataphiles. Places have mysterious titles. The beach, a tranquil haven of soft sand. The basement, the church, the play area. Certain walls have earned names based on the pictures they display. The enchanted grove, the tranquil space. Without this insider knowledge, losing your way is almost inevitable. It's nearly certain. There are also signs of habitation. Candle holders etched into the walls, benches crafted from reclaimed stone, and rusted hinges where temporary doors once existed. Some adventurers carry stencils or ink stamps, leaving their mark on the journey like secretive passports of the underground. Some people leave behind verses, bottle tops, or tiny sculptures, serene gifts to a realm of endless slumber. In the catacombs, communication transforms into heritage. Each mark, each direction, each subtle hint in color contributes to a growing story that reveals the presence of someone who existed, who journeyed through, and who sought to leave a lasting impression. In times of conflict, the Paris catacombs served a purpose beyond being a grim fascination. They transformed into a quiet struggle in the darkness. Underneath the bustling streets, as chaos erupted and power changed hands above, the catacombs provided refuge, a secret haven, and a tactical advantage. For ages, they've woven themselves into the fabric of Paris' wartime narrative. Calm, discreet, and vital. During the French Revolution, bones were still being moved underground, yet the tunnels were evolving into something beyond mere storage. As the guillotine took its toll during the day, the catacombs quietly welcomed the increasing remnants under the cover of night. Whispers circulated that the revolutionaries navigated the tunnels, stealthily traversing the city while scheming in the shadows. These passages served a purpose beyond the grave. They were strategic. During World War II, the catacombs took on a fascinating new role. During the occupation of Paris by Nazi Germany in 1940, the Wehrmacht and the SS conducted mapping of certain areas of the catacombs for their military purposes. In a notable instance, a bunker was built beneath the Lycée Montaigne, situated within the tunnel network. Concealed from the Allies, it functioned as a strategic command center, featuring fortified walls, storage for supplies, and established communication lines. However, the opposition was keeping a close eye. The French, resistance, always inventive, also utilized the catacombs. In the depths of Paris, under enemy control, they skillfully maneuvered through the tunnels, setting up ambushes, trafficking weapons, and holding clandestine meetings in the resonant shadows. It was a thrilling game of hidden pursuit beneath the surface. Just beneath the Nazis, French fighters glided through the shadows. The enthusiasts of the era, those well acquainted with the hidden areas, proved to be essential. Their expertise in concealed passages and lesser-known paths transformed the catacombs into a tactical maze. Certain areas still display signs of their existence. Graffiti of defiance, remnants of ration containers, and defensive structures carved into the rock. During air raids, shelters were meticulously carved out for safety. Everyday people occasionally sought refuge in the tunnels during Allied bombings or Nazi crackdowns. In that quiet place, families lingered in anticipation. Fragments on one side, conflict overhead, optimism lingering in the middle. Following the war, numerous areas from that time were either closed off or left behind in memory. Yet remnants linger. A corroded entrance, a heap of gas mask cartridges, a charred surface. Catacombs concealed mysteries well before the 20th century. Yet during wartime, they transformed into something entirely different. A testament to endurance, resilience, and the subtle strength of a city that would not be extinguished. In the presence of bones and shadows, tales emerge. The Paris catacombs certainly fit the bill. Throughout the ages, these tunnels have transformed into a fertile ground for myths, ghost stories, and urban legends that intertwine reality with the realm of nightmares. Originally a resting place, the catacombs now weave a tapestry of legends, each new whisper adding to the mysterious ambience that lingers in the shadows. A well-known story is that of the Phantom of the Catacombs. Some believe it's the spirit of a quarryman from long ago, forever lost in the tunnels, his footsteps echoing through the darkness, unseen yet felt. Some say he is a victim of misfortune, doomed to wander the bone-filled chamber endlessly, searching for his family among the countless skulls. Visitors and explorers have shared experiences of eerie whispers, chilling breezes, and unexpected waves of nausea in specific areas of the tunnels, particularly close to ancient, undisturbed ossuaries. Next, we have the tale of the camcorder tape. In the early 1990s, a group of cataphiles reportedly discovered a video camera hidden away in a restricted area. The footage, later aired on French television, depicted a man meandering through the tunnels, growing more frantic, darting about, disoriented. Ultimately, he lets the camera fall. His identity remains a mystery, and the events surrounding him are unknown. The clip concludes quietly, and his identity remains unknown. The tale transformed into a contemporary legend, the vanished adventurer who never resurfaced once more. Some tales venture into the realm of the surreal. There are hushed tales of chambers adorned with human bones crafted into seats and thrones, or of secretive groups utilizing the catacombs for their ceremonies. A sealed chamber, found in the early 2000s, featured a functioning phone line, a well-stocked bar, and an underground cinema. On the wall, a haunting message: "Please refrain from searching for us." Even with doubts, the allure of the catacombs legend is unmistakable. It draws upon the instinctive apprehension of darkness, the mysteries that lie beyond, and the heavy reality of mortality. The space exists, yet the narratives dwell in the voids, nestled between the glow of candlelight and the embrace of shadow, between the whispers of echoes and the stillness of silence. Regardless of your beliefs in the stories, one fact remains undeniable. Deep beneath Paris, a sense of unease lingers, and the catacombs remain ever vigilant. Today, the catacombs of Paris stand out as one of the city's most unusual and frequently explored sites. Every year, countless individuals venture into this realm of mortality, not for solemn ceremonies or traditions, but out of curiosity, seeking selfies with skulls and the excitement of being surrounded by 6 million souls who once lived. It's a space where the reality of life and death is exposed, yet presented with a ticket and a pamphlet. The official ossuary, which welcomed visitors in 1809, was initially designed as a space for contemplation, a reminder of mortality for a city overly preoccupied with appearances. Initial guests were led along by the soft glow of lanterns, often in the company of priests or scholars. Today, the lighting is more vibrant, the walls feel sturdier, yet the essence lingers on, a serene wonder, a blend of fear and amazement. Since the 19th century, tourism has seen continuous growth. Throughout history, poets, philosophers, and artists have found themselves captivated by the allure of the catacombs. Victor Hugo explored its depths, seeking creative inspiration. Salvador Dali referred to it as stunning. For numerous individuals, it has transformed into a journey of significance, not merely to face mortality, but to appreciate the intricate way in which it has been arranged, layered, and presented. Still, the catacombs spark debate. Some believe that transforming mass graves into tourist sites is a violation of dignity, trivializing the value of human lives. Some people note that many visitors are unaware of what they are actually observing. These are not just for show. They are individuals, authentic people. Once there were names, faces, and families. Now hidden remnants of a forgotten history. Nevertheless, the catacombs hold significant importance. They evoke a sense of magnitude, highlighting the countless lives that have come before us, that they truly serve as the bedrock of Paris, the departed uplifting the living. Structures that once supported nourishment, literature, or change now uphold the tailways and pathways of the city. Yet, oddly enough, as you ascend the staircase and emerge back to the surface, Paris seems to transform. More vibrant, more energetic, more awake. Ultimately, the catacombs do not celebrate mortality. They enhance our appreciation of existence, its delicacy, its fleeting nature, and its splendor. Underneath Paris, one can discover its most profound essence. All that we create is founded on a solid foundation. And one day, maybe, the city will include ours in the collection.